LeBron James just dropped a bombshell surrounding his future with the Los Angeles Lakers. We're breaking down exactly what he said and discuss what this means going forward. We also have some interesting details surrounding a new Lakers target that has huge implications going forward. We'll break that down and discuss much more on this episode. But before we get into it, folks, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Lakers content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. If you want to help us towards our goal of 20,000 subscribers, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys again for your continued support over here. Ladies and gentlemen, a ton to go over today. And obviously, still in the offseason, the Lakers are at the playoffs, as we all know, and there's going to be a bunch of new reports and rumors that are dropping. We have some interesting stuff today that has come out from LeBron James himself, not only on his future with the Lakers, but also some interesting insight into what the Lakers' plans are going forward with him and some interesting tidbits if he decides to leave. So I'm trying to go over today. Let's start with this. A very, very, interesting past couple of days. Of course, he was on the Mind the Game podcast. We also have some interesting insights surrounding his injury and what this means going forward. But let's start with this. Now, you can see this here. Breaking, LeBron James remains undecided about returning for a 23rd season per Mind the Game pod. I haven't had the conversation with the family yet as far as me going forward or whatever the case may be, but we'll see what happens. Now, obviously, at this juncture, all signs, including reports from Shams, reports from Jovan Buha, everybody is saying that LeBron James is going to be returning to the Lakers next year on, of course, his player option, and that he's not willing to obviously pick up his not pick up his player option and then renegotiate a cheaper contract. But this is pretty big, and this is the first time LeBron James has publicly spoke since, of course, them getting eliminated by the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it is an interesting thing. Now, obviously, him saying that he hasn't had the conversation yet is a little bit, I'm not going to say concerning, because all signs still point to LeBron James remaining a Laker. But he kind of, and if you actually watch the podcast and listen to it, he says a bunch of different things. And the vibe that I'm getting, at least from watching, is that, yes, he hasn't fully decided about returning next year, all these different things. But I think it's more so, he's going to return to the Lakers, and it's more so about, whether that's going to be picking up his player option, whether that's even with the Lakers, what that means, going forward for his career. And we also have an interesting, detail that is, he spoke about his injury, so a ton of different things there. But for now, he hasn't had the conversation with his family yet, which is, of course, going to be the number one thing. I assume as soon as the season ends and playoff basketball is over, we're going to have a 100% sure answer. I think at this point, he's kind of just saying, okay, I don't know 100% in case something comes up, but all signs, especially if you listen to the pod, are pointing to him remaining with the Lakers. And he also went on to say, he spoke out about teams that win championships. And this all kind of ties into the fact, and, ties into his future with LA and in the league in general. It's never just about me and Luka. It was always Minnesota versus the Lakers. And I'm at a point in my career now that I don't lose sleep over that. Like, how did me and Luka lose? Well, there's 8 other guys on the floor. And, this is some very interesting insight from LeBron James, because obviously we're at a point now, and he's at a point in his career where maybe the intensity is still there, but the lack, the degree to which he gets really upset when they lose seems to have diminished a little bit. And people were talking about, and there's a lot of fan outrage about, why is LeBron James smiling on the court when they're losing? Why is LeBron James doing this and doing that? At the end of the day, he is smiling whether they're winning or losing because he's enjoying playing basketball. And I think he's come, and he's been at a point in his career, he's won multiple championships, with the Heat and the Lakers, all these different things, Cavaliers, to where you don't need, he doesn't need to necessarily win another championship, though I think his number one goal at this juncture, based on everything he said, is to win a championship. But he doesn't lose sleep over why did him and Luka lose, as opposed to why did the Lakers lose. And it is a very, interesting thought to have, because there is 8 other guys on the floor, and we saw it with Minnesota. The problem is the Lakers weren't prepared for the Timberwolves, right? That's an obvious, it was an obvious thing, and he wasn't very. LeBron wasn't fantastic in the playoffs. I'm also not pointing, the blame on LeBron James. It was more so he was run down. He's 40 years old. JJ Redick played him for 24 minutes. And, LeBron came out and also said that he has full faith in JJ Redick moving forward, and that, JJ Redick is a coach. There's no ill will there. He thought that he did a very good job, which also kind of lends. Yes, he said that he's not 100% committed to returning, but the way that he's speaking, and again, he spoke to, about JJ Redick in the podcast and said that he has all the faith in the world in him. He's speaking as if someone who's going to be returning next year. So that's really the big bombshell piece of news. It is almost confirmed that he's going to be returning. But of course, he's not going to be able to, you're not going to say he's fully returning yet. But it is going to be interesting there. Let me know what your thoughts are on these quotes. Are you guys reading between the lines, or do you think he actually is undecided? And that's one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, is to see what you guys think about this particular issue. But a couple other things now. And obviously, he spoke out about his MCL sprain. And this is a pretty big, deal, because his injury at his age is going to impact the future of the Lakers and his future. And that might be one of the only things holding him back from returning, if that's what it is. In my 22-year career, this is my first knee injury. As soon as the impact happened, my knee locked up and I stayed in the ground for quite a minute to see if the knee would release a bit. But I knew right then and there it was a pain that I hadn't felt before. And this is not great news, because obviously when you're looking at his future, his career, all these different things, he's accomplished most of what he wants to accomplish. Would he like another title? Sure. Would he like another Finals MVP? Sure. Depending on what he's looking for, of course, he is the all-time leader in points. He accomplished that feat last year. All these different things, right? But regardless of that, what this team needs is a healthy LeBron James if they want to compete at least next year. At least, you can go about it in other ways if LeBron decides to retire, whatever it ends up being. But for him to come out and say this is the first time he's ever felt an injury like that, that's not a great sign for this point of his career, because he's at a point of his career now where he is an absolute, he is a beast, right? And, he's so good at basketball and he has been for his entire career. When you hear things that in my 22-year career, this is my first knee injury, it starts to maybe worry fans a little bit, because this is something he hasn't experienced before and something that might, linger. He has to heal differently than he's experienced. And, he's dealt with a ton of injuries. So for him to say this is a little bit concerning. And this might be one of the only reasons, if he doesn't return next year, would be injuries. But I think he's going to be fine. And the way he's talking about it, it seems that, he'll return at least one more year under JJ Redick. Give JJ another chance as well. I mean, one of the reasons he joined the Lakers was to coach LeBron James, and I think if it was only 1 year, might be doing JJ not a disservice by any means, but JJ wants to coach LeBron for 1 more year. But a couple other things I want to go over now is Gary Trent Jr. There's been a lot of rumors, reports, some Reddit threads, some tweets, all these different things about Gary Trent Jr. and how he would be a good fit for the Lakers. And I saw this interesting thread here. You can see this. You're a ball fan here. Don't see Gary taking a vet minimum. LA should spend their exception on a big. If you want shooting, keep an eye out on Miami potentially waiving Duncan Robinson, since only $8 million of his salary is guaranteed. He could sign a vet min if that's the case. We'll have another video on Duncan Robinson here soon, but I want to focus on Gary Trent Jr. And there's been a lot of rumors going around. I'm curious to see what you guys think about it, because you look at the Lakers depth chart right now, and obviously they need a center. This wouldn't be a case of getting Gary Trent Jr. not getting a center. That's absurd, ludicrous. However, what you could make a case for is getting Gary Trent Jr. as a veteran minimum, backup guard who can, shoot the ball well, do what Jordan Goodwin does, and but as a scorer. And obviously Goodwin's a great rebounder, all these different things. Gary had a pretty decent year last year for Milwaukee, not what he was, wanting. He signed a veteran minimum with Milwaukee, coming off, a $50+ million year with Toronto, hoping that he was going to be able to rebuild his value. He wasn't able to do that, and he had some fantastic games for Milwaukee, in the playoffs, one mainly. But he's still a 41% three-point shooter. He's a gritty defender. I think if you can get him for a veteran minimum, though I don't think he will go sign for that, because he just signed for one, but depending on what his market is, he would be a very good fit. And I want to see what you guys think about this particular move. Do you think that Gary Trent Jr. is someone that the Lakers should target? Do you think it's a little bit, should they focus their money and all their focus on a guy like Daniel Gafford or a center? Because I think it's not one or the other. I think they can go out and get a center while also going out and getting a wing. And I think that's ultimately what they're going to be doing, is focusing on a wing, focusing on a center at the same time to build this team around LeBron James and Luka Doncic. So it's going to be interesting. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. A ton of different reports, a ton of different topics coming out. We're going to break everything down for you. Multiple videos a day over here. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. And do you want Gary Trent Jr.? What do you take from these comments from LeBron James? Thank you guys for watching. See you guys later.